We're covering the best moves of every type in Legends ZA, and I'm going to be telling you the best move competitively and the best move casually because the playstyles are very different between the two. For example, competitive players like to run away from you in the battlefield, making moves with a longer range a better fit. But the trainers during the main story tend to stay put for a while and always seem to use Protect, making close range moves more effective. And I'll be determining which moves are the best based on these criteria: base power, utility and secondary effects, how early you gain access to the move in the main story, and how widely the move is distributed. Because I can't just say that Nihil Light is the best dragon type move, and even though it technically is, only one Pokemon learns it, and that's not going to help anybody. This video is meant to help the competitive player trying to reach rank A, the casual player enjoying the story, and anyone who wants to make the online battles more bearable since we're forced to do it in order to pick up certain Mega Stones. So let's get started with Bug. We're going to be starting off with a couple of honorable mentions in Pin Missile and U-Turn. And I know what you're thinking. The 25 base power, 95% accurate move that hits between 2 to 5 times is not what you were expecting to hear. But multi-hit moves in Legends ZA always launch all 5 attacks, meaning that this move is effectively 75 base power, and you can get it on Bois the Heracross at level 10, who is a mandatory trade. And because it's so powerful this early, I think it deserves a mention. The second honorable mention is U-Turn, because normally this move in the mainline games returns the Pokemon back to the trainer after attacking the target. But in Legends ZA, the Pokemon still attacks and comes back to the trainer, but differently. I can't say that this move is the best on its own because it needs to be comboed in order to be useful, as just returning back to you after attacking in and of itself isn't that big of an advantage. But I am working on a video for next week that goes over the best combos and the best builds in Legends ZA, so hit that sub button if you don't want to miss out. But the best bug move casually is Megahorn. Megahorn got a huge buff in ZA because it's no longer 85% accurate, but it retains all of its 120 base power. Compared to other bug moves, its charge time is almost just as fast at 17 frames compared to 10, but it is at least 33% stronger than every other move, so it's definitely worth the trade-off. It also has the added benefit of traveling while attacking, a category I'm calling Traveler for this video, which allows you to move out of traps on the field like Whirlpool, Fire Spin, Stealth Rock, and sometimes even dodge a move. Some notable users of this move are Heracross, Excadrill, Scolipede, and Veilings. But the best competitive bug move is probably also Megahorn, if I'm being honest, for all the reasons I just stated, but a close second based on a wider distribution would have to be Lunge. I know it has the disadvantage of having the longest charge time of any bug move, but the reason is that this move acts as a distance closer. As I stated earlier, a main strategy in online battling is running away from other trainers, and moves like X-Scissor and Leech Life just don't have the range to keep up with that strategy. However, Lunge closes the distance no matter how far away you are from your opponent, allowing you to close that distance and take the KO. Some notable users of this move are Pokemon like Scizor, Pinsir, Hawlucha, and even Victory Bell. So this means that Megahorn is the best bug move competitively and casually, with Lunge not far behind. Next up is Dark, and there is some dark competition. Some quick honorable mentions here are Parting Shot, that is similar to U-Turn but slightly different in that the user lowers both of the opponent's attack stats and then returns to the trainer. But it still needs to be comboed with another move to be viable. Knockoff would be better if any of the main story trainers were holding an item that you could knock off, or maybe if you could knock off more items in competitive, but with most Pokemon holding Mega Stones, you're trading a potential upside for consistency. And finally, Snarl, because this has the added effect of lowering an opponent's special attack by 1 stage, which means that they have 70% of their original attack in this game, but it is quite weak at just 55 base power and only applies to special attackers, which means that the best dark move casually has to be the 80 base power Crunch. It only has a 10 frame charge time and the potential to lower the opponent's physical defense, which I don't know if it's just me, but it feels like secondary effects proc much more often in this game. Crunch does have the drawback of not having a large hitbox, making it easier to dodge, but since it's known by just about every viable Pokemon, it still takes first place. Competitively, I would also say that Crunch is the best option, as Pokemon like Mega Gyarados and Tyranitar make good use of it, especially in all the Metagross out there. But if I had to say a second, it would be Dark Pulse. Projectile moves tend to do better in competitive as the move chases down your opponent and is one of only 2 special attacking dark moves, but Crunch takes the cake in both categories casually and competitively. And now I'm gonna be dragging you over to Dragon! Anyways, I just want to give one honorable mention and one dishonorable mention for Dragon type. The honorable mention here is Outrage, because contrary to the way the move works in the mainline games, you're not locked in for 2 to 3 turns, and Confusion isn't that big of a deal in ZA as it basically does nothing, which means that this 120 base power move essentially has no drawbacks, except for the fact that it has a 15-second cooldown and has a 30 frame charge time, which leaves you vulnerable a bit longer than you'd like or allows your opponent to run away. But fun fact, did you know that all 3 Kanto starters can learn Outrage? And the dishonorable mention is Draco Draco Meteor. Compared to its counterparts that also have 130 base power with the drawback of lowering the user's special attack stat, Draco Meteor requires 120 frames to complete the animation, about 3 to 4 times longer than its counterparts. It's easy to dodge, and regardless if you hit or not, your special attack lowers anyway, which makes this move almost unusable both casually and competitively unless you're sneak attacking someone in the ZA Royale. But the best dragon move casually is this simple Dragon Claw. For this same exact reason Crunch is the best dark move. It has a quick charge time, 80 base power, it's learned by a ton of Pokemon, and it's easy to get off before your opponent starts moving. Breaking Swipe is a close second, being that it's almost as strong and lowers the opponent's physical attack by 1 stage, but I'd take the higher base power in this exchange any day. And the fact that Dragon Claw has a few extra inches on it. And the best dragon move competitively is Dragon Rush. Dragon Rush is unique in that not only does it actually land in this game as opposed to the 75% abomination of inaccuracy in regular Pokemon, but it also has invincibility frames or iframes and chases down your opponent in ranked battles. If you time this up correctly, you can dodge your opponent's attack, but the main benefit is never missing. Because I don't know about you, but nothing infuriates me more than missing an attack in a battle, and Dragon Rush completely eliminates that concern. Totally fair if you think that Dragon Rush is the best dragon move in the main story as well, but the shorter charge time of Dragon Claw is more efficient against NPCs. Okay, so would you be shocked if I told you that Electric was next? So I have 3 honorable mentions to go over. The first is Parabolic Charge, which would be the best move if more than 2 Pokemon could learn it, but this 65 base power move has the added effect of recovering 50% of the damage dealt as HP. Basically an electric type Giga Drain, but since only Helioptile and Dedenne learn it, I can only honorably mention it. Volt Switch is another great move with pivoting potential, but similar to U-Turn and Parting Shot is only so good by itself. And although Zap Cannon is finally usable in this game and you don't need to rely on accuracy, a 50 frame charge rate, a slow projectile, and a pitiful range unfortunately keep it from making the list. So that makes the best electric move casually Thunder Fang and Thunder Punch. Now I know they're technically 2 separate moves, but since everything about them is pretty much identical, I lumped them together since 2 very different Pokemon can learn it. They're both also in that brawling category I've mentioned earlier with Crunch and Dragon Claw. And the best electric move competitively has to be Thunderbolt. Although the charge time is a bit high for my liking to be ranked the best in story mode, Thunderbolt is one of those moves that cannot miss. This allows you to start the move on your opponent, and no matter where they end up on the battlefield, they're going to get hit with a Thunderbolt. I did debate on putting Thunder here as I felt that they were very similar, but after a bit more testing, I found out that this move is great when it lands, but it is quite easy for your opponents to dodge, as are this move's counterparts in Hurricane and Blizzard. So this means that the best electric move casually is Thunder Fang and Thunder Punch, and the best move competitively is Thunderbolt. But if you think that Thunder is the best, then that's probably fair. Because that's our next type. In my black eyes, there are 2 clear-cut winners on which ones are the best, but there are 2 honorable mentions I'd like to go over first. Play Rough is the only physical fairy move in the game so far, and another one of those distance closer moves like I talked about with Lunge. The charge time is a tad long, but your Pokemon chases down your targeted opponent, and its distribution has been improved to also include Pokemon like Tyrantrum and Drampa. Draining Kiss almost made the cut, but was a bit too weak to label as the best at just 50 base power, but this is a great option for any Pokemon able to learn it, especially since it recovers 75% of the damage dealt and returns it into HP. But the best fairy move casually is Dazzling Gleam. This is another brawler type move with a low charge time, but is one of the few special attacking brawler moves. Another reason I'd like to add as to why brawler moves are the best is because they allow for move combos. You can have your Pokemon run in to use Dazzling Gleam and stay there to rip off an additional brawler move and get 3 attacks off in 3 seconds. This does help in competitive at times, but I'd say that Moonblast is the better pick for those battles. It's a projectile move that can be blocked by trees sometimes, but its travel time is quite fast and has a long range, meaning that enemy Pokemon cannot outrun it like they can Zap Cannon or Focus Blast. Not only is it 95 base power, but it also has the added chance of lowering the opponent's special attack by 1 stage, so it is an all-around good move to use offensively and defensively. And although you could argue that Moonblast is better than Dazzling Gleam in the story mode, I'm not going to fight you on it. Because fighting is... Starting off with my first of 3 honorable mentions is Mach Punch. Mach Punch is a priority move, and I just want to quickly say that every priority move is great, but this one has to be the worst because it's learned by one singular Pokemon in Lopunny. But none of the priority moves have a charge time, meaning that they hit immediately once you're in range, and the cooldown time is just 3 seconds, making them highly spammable moves for some incredible damage per second, even though the base power is a bit low. Aurasphere is up next and has the exact same argument as Moonblast, but I couldn't put it as the best fighting move, mainly because only 3 Pokemon learn it, and one of them isn't even in the game yet. And the last honorable mention is Power Up Punch. I was close on making this the best story move since it gives you a free attack boost while doing some damage, but giving up a whole move slot for a move that takes 10 seconds to come off cooldown at just 40 base power isn't the most effective in trainer battles, as oftentimes it just comes down to button mashing. But the best fighting move casually has to be Brick Break. Brick Break is another one of those brawler moves that we've been talking about, but in addition to all of those benefits, it also has the effect of removing screams set up by your opponent. This comes in handy during some major trainer battles against Emma and Tawny in the late game and prevents their team from hiding behind those screens. And the best fighting move competitively is a tie between Close Combat and Flying Press. Close Combat is another distance closer move similar to Lunge and Play Rough, where they target down the enemy, but it is 120 base power and has the drawback of lowering both defensive stats. If you land this move in competitive, it's not likely your opponent survives, so chances are the drawback of lowering defensive stats isn't much of a negative. And Flying Press is similar to Dragon Rush in that this move has improved accuracy, iframes to dodge attacks, and always lands on your opponent no matter how far they run away from you. But I did have to do this as a tie because although I do prefer Flying Press over Close Combat, Flying Press is only learned by one singular Pokemon in Hawlucha, but I felt that they were similar enough in utility to mention them at the same time. So this means the best fighting move casually is Brick Break and the best competitively is Close Combat and or Flying Press. Now normally I would be going in alphabetical order, but I want to talk about normal right now. And I just want to take a second to ask that if you learned something new or are enjoying the video, to please consider subscribing. It's free, it helps me out, it soothes my black eye, and it lets me know that you want to see my upcoming video on the best builds in ZA. But anyways, the first of 3 honorable mentions to talk about is Explosion. This move is more of a gimmick if anything, but it is so satisfying to use in online play when everybody gets bunched up and you just make your Metagross explode because you still get credit for all of the KOs. At 250 base power, this move does quite a lot of damage, but I feel like it would be a bit too toxic if everybody started doing this. And if you do happen to see it coming, it is easy to dodge or protect from. And the second honorable mention is Giga Impact. Usually an unusable move due to the recharge time and imperfect accuracy in the mainline games, Giga Impact was upgraded to have a relatively quick charge time, but is another one of those distance closures that help you track down your opponent. However, this move does leave you immobilized for a few seconds afterwards, so if anything, this move is more of a last-ditch effort. But okay, the best normal move casually is Protect. I know it's probably not what you're expecting, but hear me out. It's earned extremely early in a playthrough, every Pokemon can learn it, and each one of the promotion matches have their Mega Evolution knowing Protect plus 3 attacking moves. So maybe you're facing down Mega Scolipede who has Protect, X-Scissor, Gunk Shot, and Earthquake. If you have a Pokemon like, let's say, Mega Hawlucha against them, all you need to do is make sure to protect against Gunk Shot, and the only move Scolipede can hit you with is the quad resisted X-Scissor, which leads to a relatively easy match. And most, if not all, of the promotion matches can be cheesed in some way with this strategy. But the best normal move competitively is Extreme Speed. Extreme Speed is the strongest priority move at 65 base power and is a great move to use on Pokemon like Dragonite and Lucario who can close the distance and deal huge damage first with moves like Dragon Rush or Close Combat. This allows them to finish them off quickly with the priority Extreme Speed if they survive. So the best normal move casually is Protect and the best competitively is Extreme Speed. So next up we have Fire. And man, I just gotta say that these puns have been So the first honorable mention to go over is Lava Plume. Everything I said about Dazzling Gleam is true about Lava Plume except for the fact that only 2 Pokemon can learn it, being Flareon and Camerupt. It's a brawler move with a 12 frame charge rate and a 30% chance to burn, which if you didn't see my video about statuses, burn is the best status being that it still cuts physical attackers' damage output and deals more residual damage than poison. But another honorable mention that's hard to leave out is Flare Blitz. This is another traveler move that allows you to traverse across a battlefield, thaw out if you're frozen, and has the added benefit of hitting multiple Pokemon when playing competitive. But because it deals recoil damage that limits survivability, I think there's a few other moves that are a tadpole better. And the last honorable mention to cover is Overheat. Overheat does have the drawback of reducing your Pokemon special attack by 1 stage, but I found that holding the Wide Herb and the ZA Royale negates it for a total of 2 attacks per battle as long as the first attack is dealt when sneaking up on your opponent. For whatever reason, your item and your cooldown are reset as soon as the trainer's second Pokemon comes out, which allows you to spam Overheat yet again for some quick and easy action to earn your ticket, but it's just not quite the same in online battles. But the best fire move casually you probably know by now are the brawler moves of Fire Fang and Fire Punch because they're so widely accessible and useful. And the best fire move competitively has to be Heat Wave. Heat Wave is similar to Thunderbolt in that it has the ability to track down your opponents and never miss. It does have a bit longer of a charge up time, but since it's a special move, chances are you're going to want to keep your distance anyways, and it's totally worth nuking Pokemon with it. It's also a TM and learned by every fire type plus a few like Pidgeot, Drampa, and Altaria. So the best fire moves casually are the brawling Fire Fang and Fire Punch, with the best move competitively being Heat Wave. So the next set of moves to talk about that are flying high above the I thought that was So the first honorable mention to talk about is Brave Bird. This is a powerful traveler move just like Flare Blitz, but also has the same downside of dealing recoil damage and a limited number of Pokemon to learn it. But still fun to use with Pokemon like Talonflame and Hawlucha. Hurricane gets a mention because its accuracy is kind of fixed, but has a similar drawback to Thunder where it is quite easy to dodge and miss. But my favorite honorable mention has to be Air Slash. I hate using Air Slash in a traditional playthrough, being that it's only 95% accurate and somehow I still find a way to miss. But Legends ZA allows me to use it carefree with my Charizard now. However, it is a bit on the weaker side and takes a long time to charge for a 75 base power move. This means the best move casually is Aerial Ace, and I guess you can throw in Wing Attack as a close second. But Aerial Ace has a 1 frame charge time, making it similar to priority moves that have a 0 frame charge time. And if you don't really care about the 9 frame charge time difference, Wing Attack is a good option, being that the cooldown is 3 seconds shorter. But I like brawler moves in a story playthrough because I'm what I call an active battler, and I like to see the battle from multiple perspectives, and if I'm using projectile moves, chances are the Pokemon has to run to this little circle spot first, which can take up valuable time, and they might run into obstacles that cost them their life. But the best flying move competitively is another tie between Bounce and Fly. Bounce and Fly are essentially the same move, but are accessible by very different Pokemon. Bounce can be learned by Pokemon like Gyarados, Sharpedo, and Greninja, while Fly is learned by Pokemon that can actually fly like Salamence, Skarmory, and Pidgeot. These 2-turn moves, is what I'm calling them, are similar to Dragon Rush and Flying Press in that they have iframes, but these iframes are much longer, making it easier to dodge your opponent's attack. You are trading more iframes for a bit longer of a charge up time, but I feel the trade-off is worth it, and they have the benefit of chasing down your opponent as well. So Wing Attack and Aerial Ace are the best flying moves casually, and Bounce and Fly are the best competitively. Next up is Ghost, and I want to make the most of your next playthrough with this video sponsor, GameSir. You may have noticed an abundance of shiny Pokemon in the B-roll that I've been using, and shout out to my man Blake, but one thing that has made this possible is having access to the shiny charm. We all know how difficult it can be to get the shiny charm, being that you need to get to level 50 in Professor Mabel's research, which requires you to do 1,000 battles. And yes, I say it requires because I literally did everything else and I still fell 100 points short. But I was able to make this so much easier with the GameSir Supernova Turbo Controller, which has the ability to use turbo buttons and use macro setups, which allows me to do certain activities while I was away from my keyboard. The first thing I needed to do was progress through the main story until I was able to take on the 3-course battle inside the restaurant Lena, which is available right after achieving rank W. From there, I was able to use one of the macro setups in order to battle all of these trainers for me without me having to do anything. I did choose to use Dragonite for this since it's easiest to KO a Pokemon with a priority move like Extreme Speed. After the battle, I used the controller to repeat the macro setup I just used, so that way my controller battled these trainers indefinitely. So this allowed me to set up my controller, go to sleep, and by the time I woke up, I already had 1,000 battles finished. And then in order to get some shiny alpha Pokemon, I went back and forth in Wild Zone 20 from Prism Tower and back to the bench and enabled the macro setup so that way I could do a bunch of errands, and by the time I came back, I was greeted by a bunch of shiny alphas. Take advantage of GameSir's holiday pricing and pick up your controller today. Thanks so much to GameSir for sponsoring, and now let's get back to the video. Shadow Sneak is another priority move with a 0 frame charge time, but it can be launched at a further distance than the other priority moves I mentioned to help keep you out of harm's way. It is quite handy with a 3-second cooldown, but limited because of its distribution and the fact that it's only 40 base power. So this means that the best ghost move casually is a tie between Shadow Claw and Shadow Ball. Shadow Ball is the only projectile move in the game with a charge time the same as any brawler move at just 10 frames. This makes it an extremely useful move in the story, and I've probably talked your ear off by now about why brawler moves like Shadow Claw are good. Either of these two moves can be used in competitive with good success, but I have to give the upper hand to Phantom Force. This is another 2-turn move that gives iframes for quite a while, but it also has the added benefit of hitting through Protect just like the mainline games, even if it's not being used as a plus move. It also helps take out Metagross since they're a huge threat in almost every online battle, and even learned by Yveltal. Yveltal! So the best moves casually are Shadow Ball and Shadow Claw, while the best move competitively is Phantom Force. Okay, so now we're talking about grass, and I didn't think of any jokes, but our friend did say that they would lawn me one. And I must say that there are a ton of honorable mentions here. There's the multi-hit move Bullet Seed, which always hits 5 times for a great early game move. There's Leaf Blade, which is a fantastic brawler move that I'm sure you're shocked I didn't put as the best casual move. And there's even Leaf Storm that's similar to Overheat, but with a fraction of the charge time, making it an even better choice to sneak up on the trainers in the ZA Royale. There's Leech Seed if you're into the stall game to slowly suck your opponent's life away, and even the 120 base power Power Whip that no longer relies on an 85% accuracy and takes just 20 frames to execute. Execute. But the best of the honorable mentions has to be Horn Leech. It has the same charge time as Leaf Blade, deals almost as much damage, but restores 50% of the damage dealt as HP. The only reason why it's not higher on this list is because only 3 Pokemon can learn it. Which brings me to the reasoning as to why Giga Drain is the best grass move casually, because not only is it just as strong as Horn Leech, but every grass type can learn the move, plus a few like Electros, Florges, and Pangoro. This move is the only reason why I made it past Mega Floette in the end game, but it was difficult to narrow down which grass move is the best competitively, and I settled on Solar Beam. I know the 70 frame charge time is an eyesore, but hear me out. Some moves get unique effects when used as a plus move, like more power or a bigger radius, but Solar Beams is that it charges instantly. This means that your Mega Venusaur, Meganium, or even Chandelure can launch instant one-turn Solar Beams whenever they're Mega Evolved to deal huge unexpected burst damage. And it's even learned by a ton of Pokemon like every grass type, Delphox, Houndoom, and even Aggron. So the best grass move casually is Giga Drain, and the best competitively is Solar Beam. Although I would have no hard feelings if you slapped my opinion to the ground, because Ground is next. What? I thought it was good. The only honorable mention I want to talk about with Ground is Drill Run, and it's only because a total of 3 Pokemon learn it in Beedrill, Skarmory, and Excadrill. Otherwise, this would be my #1 pick for both casual and competitive play. This is another Traveler move to help avoid obstacles and chase down opponents, only has a 15 frame charge time and a high critical hit ratio. Literally perfect minus its accessibility, which means that the best ground move casually has to be Earthquake. Earthquake has a slightly longer charge time than Drill Run, and although quite powerful, the radius of it can be easily dodged competitively. But I don't think I've ever missed this move in a playthrough. And the best ground move competitively is another tie between Dig and Earth Power. If you've ever ran through Wild Zone 17 with all the Pyroar using Earth Power, then you know exactly why this move is good. The only reason I don't like it for a playthrough is that it has a fairly long charge time, but it does have incredible potential to seek down opponents trying to run away from you in ranked battles. And Dig is just another version of Bounce and Fly, but a ground type version, often a better fit for Pokemon like Garchomp and Excadrill who want to dodge and attack every now and again and not with an Earthquake. So the best ground move casually is Earthquake, and the best competitively is a tie between Dig and Earth Power, depending if you're using a physical or special attacker. Okay, so the next section is so cold that it might bring tears to your eyes. Yeah, I deserve that, but the first honorable mention for Ice is the priority move Ice Shard. I've already talked about how good priority moves can be, but Ice Shard is the Ice type equivalent of Shadow Sneak, where this move hits from a distance and the distribution is a bit lacking. Icicle Crash is another move worth mentioning, as it can be used to snipe opponents if they're not paying attention, but it is another one of those moves that's easy to dodge if you see it coming and has a bit too long of a wind-up time just to end up missing. As with our next honorable mention, Freeze Dry. Now I would consider Freeze Dry the best move casually and competitively if the distribution was a bit better, especially since it deals quite effective damage to popular Pokemon like Gyarados and Garchomp. But since only 5 Pokemon can learn it, I cannot justify it being the best, although it is quite good. The best ice moves casually are Ice Fang and Ice Punch, and I'm sure I don't need to explain why at this point, but the best ice move competitively has to be Ice Beam. Dozens of Pokemon can learn it, making it highly accessible, and coming in at 90 base power and not that easy to dodge, this move is easily one of the best moves in the game. And just a quick note about Blizzard, because I know it seems as though it would be better since this chart states the total amount of frames are lower than Ice Beam, but again, just like their counterparts in Thunder and Hurricane, it is quite easy to dodge, and it definitely stings when you miss. Sting? Like Poison Sting? Poison doesn't have very many moves to choose from, so we only have 2 honorable mentions to talk about. The first is Poison Jab, which is essentially the brawler move of Poison, and in my opinion the best physical move since Gunk Shot is easily dodgeable. It's highly accessible, decent base power, and makes for a good move to use against Jacintha's fairy types. And the second honorable mention is Toxic. I've been obsessed with trying to find some type of strategy that involves using Toxic on all the Xerneas and competitive right now. And it works quite well, being that the residual damage racks up very quickly, but this is a much more viable strategy to use in the main story on alphas, the post-game legendaries, and any promotion match A's. So the best poison move to use casually is Sludge Wave. Now you might be wondering what the difference between Sludge Wave and Sludge Bomb is besides a measly 5 base power, and the answer is that Sludge Wave is a radius move designed for close range combat, which is a better fit for casual play and has a 30% chance to poison the target, while Sludge Bomb is a projectile move with only a 10% chance to poison the target. And because Sludge Bomb has more range and is easier to hit moving opponents, Sludge Bomb gets the edge when it comes to competitive play. So it's Sludge Wave for the best casual poison move and Sludge Bomb for competitive players. Now next up is Psychic, and my calm mind had the future sight to see that one coming, which means that nobody can stop me from... Oh no. Again? So the two, technically three, honorable mentions I want to go over are Reflect, Light Screen, and Future Sight. Reflect and Light Screen have the damage from physical and special moves respectively for a full 35 seconds and even stay with your Pokemon as you switch. This allows you to protect your team and your planned Mega Evolution for the entire fight. Future Sight gets a mention because although it is delayed and a bit easy to dodge, the Plus variant greatly broadens the radius, allowing Pokemon like Mega Gardevoir to do big damage from a distance. But the best Psychic type move to use casually is Psycho Cut, which just barely edges out Zen Headbutt. Although similar in base power and reasonably the same amount of frames for charge time, Psycho Cut has the added benefit of possibly getting a critical hit every time you use it. And while Zen Headbutt does have the chance to flinch, not only do you need to be precise with your timing in order to flinch, but it is also only a 30% chance. And I'll take the no skill crit over a potential flinch any day. And the best Psychic type move competitively is another tie between Psy Shock and Psy Kick. Now although Psy Kick is 10 base points stronger than Psy Shock and both are special moves, Psy Shock deals physical damage, which is a big differentiator as Xerneas' Geomancy only protects them from Psy Kick since their special defense gets a boost as well. They're also similar to Thunderbolt and Heat Wave where these moves virtually never miss and can hit a fleeting target. And most Psychic types get both of these moves, making for a fast and hard-hitting moveset. I would be okay with nominating Psy Shock and Psy Kick as the best Psychic type moves casually as well, but now you have options if you want to get physical with your opponent. I mean, Rock Hard, isn't that right, Brock? Rock Slide is the rock type Icicle Crash, and that sniping opponents is always fun if they're not paying attention. But because it's so easy to dodge and these other moves I'm going to mention are going to be much better, it only gets an honorable mention. As does the move Rock Blast, which is another great early game rock move, but the best early game rock move I've found is Rollout. Rollout is another one of those traveler moves that we've talked about to help move your Pokemon out of harm's way and is available on 2 of the 3 starters, if you count Chespin that is, which makes it feel much more accessible than it is, but 60 base power isn't going to get it done. And no, this move does not get stronger if you keep using it consecutively, which would be kind of cool. So the best rock type move in a playthrough is Stone Edge. Of all the inaccurate moves getting a buff like Dragon Rush and Thunder, Stone Edge has to be the best. It's 100 base power, high critical hit ratio, only has a charge time of 15 frames, a decent range, and is a widely accessible TM. Easily my favorite upgraded move and helps out against the many Charizards in competitive right now. However, the best rock move competitively has to be Head Smash. I know I've talked about recoil moves and how I dislike the drawback, but 150 base power is too high to pass up. And it's another traveler move to help your Pokemon get out of harm's way. Some great users of this move are Emboar, Tyrantrum, and even Steelix. But regardless, either of these moves could be number 1 competitively or casually. Rock is the most redeemed type of ZA with some upgrades like this since they barely have any 100% accurate moves in the mainline games. And I know that you're still waiting for 2 more times. So the first honorable mention is Bullet Punch, and this is another priority move which makes Lucario one of the best Pokemon for hunting Mega Shards because they can learn Quick Attack, Extreme Speed, and Bullet Punch. But it's not really enough to deal meaningful damage. Flash Cannon gets a mention because just like Aura Sphere, they are the only special move of their respective typing and are good for projectiles competitively, but I think there's another move that tops it. For casual play, it's the brawler moves of Iron Head, Iron Tail, and Steel Wing. These 3 moves are all similar in the sense of execution time and base power, but between these 3, almost every Pokemon can learn at least one, making this steel type brawler move the most accessible in the game. Iron Tail is the strongest with a secondary chance to lower the opponent's defense, Iron Head has the chance to flinch, and Steel Wing might be the weakest but comes with the best upside, which is a chance to raise your own defense for a while. But the lack of range for all 3 of these moves makes Heavy Slam the best steel move competitively. Heavy Slam is the steel type equivalent of Dragon Rush where the user does get some iframes and then chases down the opponent if they try to get away. It isn't as widely distributed as some of the other moves I've mentioned, but can still prevent you from missing and makes the extra charge time worth it. I've done 2 playthroughs so far, one with the Steelix with Heavy Slam and one with Iron Tail, and the Steelix with Iron Tail was far superior. I was gonna come up with a water pun, but at this point I'm all dry. Water, you mean? Water has a few honorable mentions to go over, and the first 2 are the priority moves of Aqua Jet and Water Shuriken. Water and Normal are the only types to get more than 1 priority move, and while Water Shuriken is exclusive to Greninja, Aqua Jet can be learned by Feraligatr, Starmie, and even Sharpedo, which can deal huge damage when they're Mega Evolved. Flip Turn is the last of the returning to trainer type moves like Volt Switch and U-Turn, and has some good synergy with special moves like Hydro Pump, which if you don't know is just like Scarlet and Violet where Blastoise actually makes use of their cannons. But the best water moves casually and competitively I think is the 3-way tie between Liquidation, Waterfall, and Surf. Liquidation is one of the strongest brawler type moves that has a chance to lower the opponent's defense. Waterfall is another traveling move with only a 15 frame charge time, and Surf is essentially a slightly longer but wider sweeping special attacking version of Waterfall, which both of these moves have the chance to knock out more than one opponent at a time, which is a huge benefit competitively. Thank you so much for watching. If you learned something new or enjoyed the content at any time, I would greatly appreciate a like, a comment, hitting that hype button, or even subbing to the channel if you think I've earned it. Next week I'm posting a video about the best builds in ZA, but until then, make sure you go check out my video about everything you need to know about statuses in ZA. Thank you all so much, and I'll see you all very soon.